To have full control of our developer experience around Marlowe, it is recommended that you install Haskell and the software for the Cardano command line interface on your machine. This will allow queries into the various networks like Preprod Testnet, Preview Testnet, and Mainnet to verify transactions are reflected on-chain as intended. Most importantly, it will give us the power to directly mint native assets, for example non-fungible tokens or utility tokens that are the backbone of most decentralized finance projects. While Marlowe gives us control over all assets and roles in a transactions, we cannot directly mint or burn assets with Marlowe due to its high level of security guarantees. Installing the node and command line interface gives us those powers. It makes sense to separate these processes so our finance app does not have unintended consequences or becomes vulnerable to malicious actors.
After we have installed a Cardano wallet, we can directly access the blockchain. This is, however, limited to convenience functions that are allowed by the wallet, for example, receiving or sending ADA, looking at NFTs, and things like that. But if we directly want to submit smart contracts, query the blockchain, or mint our own tokens, we need to have a more powerful tool to access, for example, using a command line interface. To do that, we need to have access to the Cardano node, depending on the testnet or the mainnet that we want to use. And for that setup, we require a Linux machine. You can use AWS, for example, to set up Linux environment in the cloud. You can use a native Linux machine, for example, have Linux as your operating system on your laptop. Or, like me, you can install the WSL on Windows, which is a Windows subsystem for Linux. And this will allow you, for example, to run Ubuntu directly on your Windows machine. So to do this, you open your terminal. So now I'm in my terminal for the WSL2. And you can copy all the code snippets that are provided in the GitHub repository. For example, this one. I go here, I paste it, write the sudo password, and it will install all the necessary updates and dependencies before we can proceed with the node installation. This command here is very harmless. You can do it all the time to get the latest files for your system. Some of the other commands I will not paste today because I already have a node on my machine and I don't want to override anything that I have already installed, but I will walk you through the installation step by step anyway. So the next step is this part here, which is more node specific. This is a very general update. If you don't have Haskell on your machine, you can just download it from the official GHC website like this. Just copy it and paste it into the terminal again. Then restart your terminal or source it. You have to set the Haskell version to the one that is in use by the current version of the node, which you can inquire the Intersect MVO website that is referenced here about. And with, for example, Cabal -- version, you can check that this is set to the correct version that you want to run. Then there are some very helpful resources here. For example, tool.io, which will show you the network health of mainnet. We see that we are currently in epoch 545, and the nodes are reporting different versions. 92% of all mainnet nodes are running 10.1.4 is the Intersect MBO version of the Cardano node. 4% run 10.13, 1% run 9.20, less than 1% run 8.12, and so on and so forth. And this is really helpful in deciding which node to install. So right now, the overwhelming peers on the blockchain are running 10.1.4. So if you are downloading from the GitHub of Intersect MBO, it makes sense to choose this particular version as well. So this is the next part that we do after we install all the prerequisites, including Haskell, that you set the node version here like this. So you would copy this code, then you park it somewhere in a notepad, and you edit this before you paste it into your terminal. The next step is creating a dedicated folder for all the source files or the Cardano node on your environment. So I'm choosing SRC. You can also choose Git, as some people prefer to do. And then you download the crucial dependencies for running the blockchain, which are libsodium, the hashing software, and the BLST. So all these installations have to be made on your terminal. You can just follow along. It should download everything in less than, worst case, let's say 1 hour if you have nothing installed and are on a relatively slow setup. Also here, you need to put the version that you have decided on. It has to be the same version that you have set earlier. And all these steps. By the way, there are other links here. For example, the official Cardano node GitHub repository, which provides the cutting edge version of the node and also legacy node versions and very detailed information about all the troubleshooting, installation, and so on. As you can see, there are 155 contributors. So it's a very actively maintained repository. And there's also a private guide from a community member of the EU01 Cardano stake pool that I find quite useful. There are some additional tips and tricks how you can, for example, add swap virtual memory if you are not quite over the threshold of RAM, for example, for running the node. And after all these installations here finish, I have included some troubleshooting tips if there are errors, but there's also a Stack Overflow and a Cardano forum that you can Google if you have any problems. There's a lot of resources. And the next step would be run the node. So after the installation has finished, we pick up there and create different folders for one of the testnets and for mainnet to install the config files and start syncing the node. After installing the node, let's create a folder and run the node on our system, which includes downloading all the config files and then starting to sync to the current state of the blockchain. But before we do that, let's check that everything worked as expected by checking the version of the Cardano command line interface. So if it's indeed found, you can see that we are having this version of the node installed on our Linux machine with this Haskell version. So that looks good. And then you download these files here from the internet, which are provided by Intersect MBO. You copy them and you paste them into your terminal. Ideally, we do this in the dedicated folder for the network that we choose. So we do, for example, make directory preview, make directory preprod, and make directory mainnet. I already have a preprod and a mainnet on my machine, so you can see that the file exists. And I go into preprod. And if you do this for the first time, you download these files, but I don't want to overwrite the files that I have already in there. And then if installation worked out, we have all these files. We can start syncing the node. You just paste the command. And then the node will start syncing. If you do this for the first time for preprod, it will take a few hours. If you do this for the mainnet, depending on your RAM and your internet speed, it will take a long time. But you can do this overnight. Or if you have a previous DB folder, you can restore it and just sync from the last tip of the blockchain that you have in your database. So this is how it looks. After we have synced to the current state of the blockchain, the speed at which the updates will come in here, like new tip, will slow down dramatically. And you will see only every minute or so that some data will be downloaded to your database. So when you have this state, you can open a new terminal like this and go into the relevant folder. So for example, for the Preprod Testnet, go into your Preprod folder, or for mainnet, go into mainnet. And then you can export the socket path, because we are now in a new terminal, like this. And then all the Cardano CLI commands begin with Cardano CLI. You can see some tutorial here, for example, by the Cardano developers, how to mint tokens. So minting native assets is one of the things that Marlowe cannot do itself. So we have to do this using the native Cardano CLI. And the entire command to query the tip is this for the Preprod Testnet. So let's do the mainnet here, where I'm on right now. And then you can see 100% here. So we are indeed fully synced and can start minting tokens or whatever we want to do that we cannot do inside Marlowe itself.